Hello everybody, I'm Miss G and I'm going to try to make math a little easier for you today. In this video, we're going to be talking about the linear pair theorem, where you have two angles that together form a line or a straight path. Whenever you have those two angles together, they're always going to add to equal 180. If I wanted to determine the value of A in this situation, since these two angles form a line, I know that the first one plus the second one is going to equal 180 degrees, because every line does. So I'm going to take the 66-degree angle and the unknown angle A and add them to equal 180. From here, my goal is to get A alone, so I'm going to subtract the 66 in order to cancel it from the left side of the equation and move it to the right, giving us A equals 114 degrees. For the second example, we have the same situation. We have two angles that are connected to each other and they form a straight line. And because they're a linear pair, they're supplementary, meaning the first angle plus the second angle equals 180 degrees. So B plus 142 degrees equals 180. And just like before, since the numbers are separated by an equal sign, I subtract the constant value from both sides because it's positive, and to cancel we use a negative. And then I figure out that 180 minus 142 is going to be 38 degrees. And that's the answer. These, of course, are the simplest problems of the linear pair theorem, where you have a known angle and you just subtract from 180 to find the other one. This is a slightly more complicated version of that same situation. Now I'm going to start with the angle I know, this 58 degrees. It forms a line with A. So that means those two angles together are going to add to equal 180. So 58 degrees plus A equals 180 degrees. I'll subtract the 58. That'll cancel on the left, leaving me with A equals 122 degrees, because we borrow from the 8 to make a 10, and 10 minus 8 is 2, while 7 minus 5 is also 2. Now that gives us our A value, which is the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is B, so I'm going to go back to my picture and mark that A is 122 degrees. If I want to find B, I'm going to look at it in terms of its line. A and B together are a linear pair, so I could have said that A plus B is 180, just as I said 58 plus A was 180. And since I know that A is 122, that means 122 plus B is 180. And then we just repeat the process. We subtract 122 from both sides, and we find that B is 58 degrees. This is going to lead us to something called the vertical angles theorem, which we'll explore in a different video, where we have two lines that cross each other, creating angles that are the same. This is 58 degrees, and B is also 58 degrees. And the reason is because they both form a line with A. And if they form a line with the same angle, they have to be the same to make it work. Now that we've explored the basic linear pair problems, let's take a look at some examples that are a bit more complicated, examples involving expressions. So here I'm asked to determine the value of x, which means I'm not trying to find the angle, I'm looking specifically for my x. And I know that I have two angles that together form a line. So the first angle plus the second angle are going to equal 180 degrees. In this case, that's 5x plus 10 plus 80. From here, we could subtract the 80 from both sides and get 100 and say that this angle is 100, so 5x plus 10 is 100. That is one way to solve it. I personally tend to solve it in a more algebraic fashion where I combine like terms. So for me, I would do the 10 plus 80 to make 90 and have 5x plus 90 equals 180. Then I would subtract the 90s. That way I don't have to subtract the constants twice. And I would get 5x equals 90. From here, I would divide both sides by 5 to cancel it, leaving me with x equals 18. Because 5 goes into 9 once with 4 left over, and 5 goes into 40 8 times. The answer to this problem is that x equals 18 because that's what it wanted. If I wanted the angle, I wouldn't have had to go to this much trouble. 180 degrees is the whole line, and if this is 80, this one has to be 100. So the angle value is 100. And if I had put the 18 in here, 5 times 18 equals 90, plus 10 equals 100. And that's one way you can check your work. which is always a good idea, just to confirm that you haven't made a mistake. This next example is very similar to the last one. We have two expressions that we need to add to form a line. So our first angle plus our second angle is going to equal 180 degrees. We have 12x plus 6 plus 6x plus 30 equals 180. To start this problem, I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 12x plus 6x, which makes 18x. Then I have 6 plus 30, which makes 36, and that whole thing together makes 180. From here, I'll subtract the 36, because to cancel plus 36, we subtract it, leaving me with 18x on the left equals 144 degrees on the right, because 180 minus 36 is 144. From here, we're going to divide by 18, which means that x equals 8. Now, unlike the last problem, this question doesn't ask for the value of x. It asks for the measure of each angle, which means once we know what x is, our job is to plug it in. I'm going to start with this 6x plus 30. That's going to equal 6 times 8, because x is 8, plus 30. And 6 times 8 is 48, plus 30 is 78. So our first angle measure is 78 degrees. Now from here, I have two choices. I could do 180 minus 78, which gives me 102. So this angle is 102 while this is 78. Or I could plug x into the other angle, which is 12x plus 6, giving me 12 times 8 plus 6. 12 times 8 is 96, plus 6 is 102 degrees. And while I could choose to do either way, I personally do both, because that way I can check that I have the correct x value, and I can check that my values match, and I haven't made any mistakes. So the answer to this problem would be both 78 degrees and 102 degrees, because our job in this problem was to determine x by adding the angles to equal 180, and then plugging it back in to get our individual angle measures. This last example is a bit more conceptual because the problem asks us to determine the value of a in terms of x. Now what that means is our goal is to have a equals something x something. We're trying to figure out what a equals as an expression involving x. So to do that, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing. We're going to take the first angle plus the second angle equals 180, because together they form a line making a linear pair. So we have x plus 25 plus a equals 180. Our end goal is for a to be alone. So we want to get rid of the x and we want to get rid of the 25 in order to make that happen. I'm going to start with my constant term, and I'm going to subtract it from both sides. It'll cancel on the left, leaving me with x plus a on the left and 180 minus 25, which is going to be 155 on the right. Then from here, I want to get rid of the x. And again, the way I do that, since it's positive x, is to subtract the x, since the relationship between x and a is one of addition. We cancel that from both sides. Now, unlike last time, I can't do 155 minus x. I can't bring those two things together. They're not like terms. So instead of trying, I'm just going to put them next to each other with 155 minus x, which I'll put in parentheses with a degree sign to show that it is an angle measured in degrees. And that's how we solve linear pair theorem problems. I hope I was a bit of help to you today, and if you want to help me out and hit those like and subscribe buttons, I would greatly appreciate it. But if not, I still love you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Bye, everybody!